I woke up and just saw that my phone was exploding with Skype messages. People were talking, hey, we need to stop the network. I was like, whoa, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And then that's how I told my wife. Like we were still in bed and say, hey, like remember that pile of unhackable money that I just told you the other day? Like it was hacked.
Hello and welcome to to DeFire. DeFire, that's the new name of the show. More on that at the very end of the episode. My name is Jonas and today we are going to dive deep into the story of that pile of money, simply called the DAO. It was one of the most ambitious crypto projects back in 2016, and tens of thousands of early Ethereum enthusiasts, just like me, collectively locked around $250 million worth of ETH in the DAO. And that day that pile of money got hacked, every single cent of it was at risk. For this episode, I had the pleasure of meeting one of the driving forces of a group of white hat hackers that formed to protect the DAO from the attacker. Alexander van de Sande, or simply known under his moniker AVSA. Alex was at the time a contractor for the Ethereum Foundation. He was one of the creators of Mist, one of the first Ethereum wallets, and he was the public face and spokesperson of this so-called Robin Hood group. While the attacker was stealing the money for themselves, the Robin Hood group tried to replicate the attack and started stealing the money for all the people out there who had trusted the smart contract with their ETH. I personally had lost and recovered 18 ETH in the DAO hack. So when I had the chance to visit Alex in his house in Rio, it was only right to bring him a small present to thank him for his effort. And look, I have something other for you. It's Swiss chocolate, and it's not like the touristy kind.
This is Honduras chocolate.
Yeah, but it is made in Switzerland. So this is the chocolate I would eat, myself.
That is awesome.
So it's like the supermarket chocolate, but it's very good.
Thank you.
So Brazil and crypto. How is the scene here? How would you describe it?
So here's a cool thing. Crypto is really like worldwide, right? It's like the internet. It really didn't matter for the fact that I was in Brazil, right? And I think that's the fantastic part, right? Like I can tell you about like what's specific about Brazil and crypto, but I think the more interesting story is what's not specific, because I've been like a geek fan for a long time, and I always knew that, look, if you want to do this, you need to go to San Francisco. If you want to do that, you need to go to Berlin, or maybe like if you want to do design, like go to London and things like that. And I always thought that at some point I had to somehow emigrate to be able to work in an area that I wanted to. But then this thing came, and I was able to just contact people and say, hey, I'm a fan of what you do, and I think I can help. And then they just told me, hey, help here, help this, help there. And then suddenly I found myself being probably one of the first people talking about Ethereum in my country. Back when I started, crypto was just a little shadow behind Bitcoin, right? Yeah. And I don't think there's a better metaphor for that for the first time I gave a talk. First time I gave a talk was in a Bitcoin conference in Brazil, and the main theme of the conference was like Bitcoin Brazil, let's talk about Bitcoin price going up. And then there was mostly a sidetrack for other stuff. Yeah. And I was literally just after the guy who was talking about UFOs, conspiracy theories, and how Obama was somehow going to overthrow the US government.
Oh my God.
When he was still a president. And I was like, who am I talking to? And then it was like, after this guy, before the coffee break, people were like hungry, and then like, yeah, let's put this guy talking about this altcoin, right? So
that's so weird. Weird in the sense that the Bitcoin had attracted those kind of conspiracy-minded people in the first place, right? And the second thing...
I think there is a lot of like Bitcoin attracts gold bugs, and to this day you see a lot of preppers. And
true.
There is a sense that Bitcoin is really this leverage against the dollar and against basically all the society collapsing, right? There is this thing that attracts about Bitcoin, in which it's like buying shotguns and canned food, and like stockpiling them, and like maybe society will collapse, and I will have like gold shotguns and Bitcoin, and I'll survive, and after all this is done, I will be the king. Right?
And you were, I mean, obviously before Ethereum, you must have heard about Bitcoin, and were you also into Bitcoin yourself?
Yes, I started by being into Bitcoin, right? So sometimes people ask me, oh, how did you hear about Ethereum? And I'm the other, how did you not hear about that? I probably first listened to a podcast about Bitcoin in 2011. Oh, there's this technology that's either going to be forbidden in 6 months, or like it's going to like overthrow governments, and it's a real thing. And after that, there was also like a Planet Money episode in 2012, I think. Bitcoin was in The Good Wife, the TV show. So there was a feeling that in 2012 it was reaching the mainstream. Like, it's funny to say that, like, in hindsight, when we know what mainstream looks like, and it's still like on the edges.
Yeah.
And if you start following Bitcoin back in 2011, 2012, it would be hard for you to miss Ethereum. And if you go back to the metaphor of shotguns and canned goods, I've never identified with the guy who would buy shotguns and canned goods and just wait for the apocalypse. I think the good guys in those scenarios are the guys who are out there in the apocalypse trying to like rebuild society, right? Just getting there together and being eaten by the zombies and just trying to like negotiate with them and figure out how do we build a new society with the zombies out there instead of just hide away in a shelter somewhere. And I think if Bitcoin is for the bunker guys, Ethereum is for the guys out there trying to like clean up the world of the zombie plague.
You would say the Bitcoin guy is a little bit more the selfish guy looking for survival, almost maybe cherish the moment, finally the zombies are here. I told you so, there would be zombies, and now you haven't prepared, and I'm here and I have my Bitcoin and my canned good. And the Ethereum guys then are the people building the new infrastructure, building the new world.
Yeah, let's build a new world together, everyone, right? And that is sort of how I saw myself talking just after the conspiracy guy between like a coffee break. But most people were like where's the coffee and let me talk to the crazy guys.
Yeah. How much more will Bitcoin be next month?
Exactly. And he was like, will it reach $100 next month or not? Which it's awesome, but at some point like we got tired of that.
Yeah.
And everyone started realizing, hey, this future is not going to be built on the Bitcoin network, right? At some point, we all believed it would be.
Yeah.
And then sometimes Bitcoiners complain about, like you should build everything on the Bitcoin network, and like everyone who's not building in Bitcoin is sort of an enemy. But the truth is, we were all together at some point, and they were the one who pushed us out. They were the one who said, hey, here's what you can do with Bitcoin. Here's what you cannot do with Bitcoin. And you want to like do smart contracts, you want to do Namecoin, you want to do those other things, get out of here. Like go do something somewhere else. You are spamming the network.
Okay.
And that's how Ethereum came about.
Came to be. Okay. Interesting. Okay. I tried to explain here the story of the DAO, right, and the whole hack situation. There was a book written about it as well.
Yeah, there are 2 books reading about it, and there's a 3rd coming out.
A page of the book is describing you, and it's on your Twitter, the background image, and it reads, "Badass blockchain ninja warriors." It's like a list of people, and then it's you, Alex van de Sande, known as AVSA, helped marshal the Robin Hood group from his apartment in Rio. That's where we sit now in Rio. You co-developed the Mist wallet, and you're an excellent husband. So what makes you an excellent husband, and how did that end up in the book?
So that was written by Matt Leasing, which just to be clear, he's not my husband, right? And my wife had no say on what that, on the reason. And it was funny because when I posted that image, she actually replied a quote from Ali Wong, and it said, "It takes so little to be considered an excellent husband and dad, and it also takes so little to be considered a shitty mom and wife."
Ooh,
and I think it's beautiful because, like, the only reason that's there, it's like I told Matt that I used to wake up very early with my wife so I can prep her breakfast, right?
Oh, okay.
That's it. Being a man and being a dad, it's funny how easy it is to get congratulated on being an excellent dad and an excellent husband. Because that happens all the time. Like, I'm just pushing my baby stroller and people, "Oh, that you were pushing the baby stroller. You're an excellent dad," right?
Yeah. But it wasn't only Alex's skills as dad or husband that attracted the interest of journalists and book authors. By the way, the book we are talking about is called Out of the Ether by Matt Leasing. Many of the numbers and information you'll hear in this episode are based on that book, and Alex played an important role in it, since he was the public face of the white hat hackers trying to save the day. But it's important to Alex to point out that he obviously wasn't the only one involved in the story.
The reason I'm a protagonist here is not that I am a special badass hacker. It's just that I put myself in the position and I offered myself to be the public face of that because there was some risk to it, because people had no idea, is there a legal risk to what we are doing?
Yeah.
And I knew it could be traced back to me. But there are so many other badass blockchain ninja warrior guys out there, and they never got their stories heard. It's nice to clear that out.
Okay. But now we have to explain what it actually was, what you did. And I think we have to explain what the DAO is.
A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization.
Yeah.
Decentralized because it's not controlled by a single person. Autonomous because you can't shut it off. And organization because it's a way in which, like, you put money and it does stuff, right? It will realize real stuff. And it was created by those German guys, this Lockit project. All they wanted was to sell doorknobs, right?
Wait a second, did Alex just say doorknobs? Yes, you heard that right. The story of the DAO started with a totally different idea, smart locks. The Lockit team, who would later build the DAO, wanted to make locks that you can open and close by interacting with the blockchain. I found an old clip on YouTube where you can hear the founder of Lockit explaining his vision to a crowd of developers at an Ethereum conference in 2015.
So what is the problem we are trying to solve? So most of you have a lot of property. Think about your house, your car, your washing machine, and a lot of different other things. But you use them only like 5% of the time. Most of the time they're just sitting around there and don't do anything. How could you rent, sell, or share them easily? And that's basically the problem we are trying to solve. But we want to show you now a solution, which is basically a lock that can directly be opened by paying it. I mean, paying the lock.
But then, like, their dream grew bigger and say, hey, we should probably raise money. And we should raise money on Ethereum also, because that's what we are doing. And since we're all talking about this, like, let's build a giant robot on the sky that manages money for you. Let's build that, right?
But when you say robot, it was basically a fund, right, where people could then pay in and decide which other projects should be funded.
Exactly.
The Lockit team was looking for a way to crowdfund their own smart lock company on Ethereum. But they wanted to go a step further and figured, why should all the other startups have to program their own initial coin offerings? Why shouldn't there be one huge fund that is controlled by the token holders? The DAO was their solution and idea. It would be a decentralized fund that was living on Ethereum, and the shareholders of this DAO would be able to use their tokens to vote and fund all kinds of different companies. Here you can hear Christoph Jentsch, the founder of Lockit, introducing the DAO, or as he calls it, DAO, at DEF CON in London.
What is the blockchain way of creating a company? Of course, it needs to be a DAO. So we will do a pre-sale, we'll do a fundraising, like a crowdfunding, and that's where we need your help. So you fund the development, you are able to vote on major decisions, and very importantly, You control the funds.
People were very excited about it, and that was the first time someone was doing something practical on Ethereum. Ethereum was just like this pipe dream back then, and there was nothing you could do on it until people came on the DAO. I think whenever something big starts happening in Ethereum, there is a sort of like a virtuoso cycle in which like people start talking about this thing you can do. Ethereum gets on the news, then the price of Ether goes up. People who bought Ether earlier get that extra money, and they decide, hey, I want to diversify my money. I want to put in something new. Maybe I should put here on the DAO.
The launch of the DAO was an instant success. For each Ether you sent to the DAO smart contract, you would receive 100 DAO tokens in return. Ethereum holders all over the world sent 12.7 million Ether to the DAO. This was by far the largest crowdfunding event in history ever. The DAO raised 12.7 million Ether, which was around 15% of all Ether that was out there at the time, and that was equal to more than 150 million US dollars, and sometimes I also read the number 250 million. So I think it must have, in the meantime, it must have increased.
It fluctuated a lot, right? Yeah. The DAO itself made the price of Ether go up, and then
crash.
And then it crashed, and that's how it's hard to say how much money was in there. So like 15% of all Ether going to the DAO, so that would be $20 billion today.
It's absolutely crazy, huh?
Yeah, $20 billion today.
The DAO tokens mentioned earlier had different functions. For one, you would need them to cash out your Ether, and this would become more important later. But you also needed them to interact with the DAO and vote, for instance, for proposals for what projects, ideas, and startups the DAO should fund next.
One of the first proposals, in fact, like one of the first ideas were the Rocket guys wanted a security audit and let's raise, I think, $100,000 just to do a security audit.
On the DAO contract or on the Rocket contract?
Yes.
Oh, the first money should have prevented the hack to happen in the first place. Interesting.
And a lot of people,
that's so ironic.
That's so ironic because a lot of, you know what happened to that proposal even before it got to the DAO?
No.
Just on the forum, it was like shut down as a money grab. These Rocket guys, they just want money for themselves in order to run the DAO. The DAO doesn't need anyone to check it. The DAO is already like, the DAO works on itself. The DAO doesn't need like employees, right?
Okay.
And it was like shut down.
That's so funny.
So, after Rocket made that proposal, then the Cornell University students, led by this professor, Emin Gunn, one of the main protagonists of the stories, they published a paper with all the flaws they found on the DAO.
The computer science professor Emin Gunn and his students found so many potential vulnerabilities in the code that they even published a blog post advocating for the project to be put on hold. But it was only weeks later when Professor Gunn and his students discovered the crucial bug.
And the story goes that one of the students found this particular 2 lines, and he called his professor and said, "Hey, professor, I think you can hack the DAO by just using those 2 lines." But the professor, Emin, was very sick, had a big flu. He looked at the code, he couldn't really, I don't know, I don't think you can do anything with that. Let me think about it for a couple of days, right? I don't want to do anything about that. I have a terrible flu.
Yeah.
And that was like the night before.
Hidden in those 2 lines of code, the students at Cornell found a critical bug that could put the whole thing in jeopardy. A serious vulnerability was found on line 666. I'm not making this up. And it allowed any attacker to make unlimited ATM-like withdrawals. Even if the hacker only had $100 in their account, they would be able to withdraw it over and over and over again until all the money is gone. And that's exactly what started happening. What happened on that day? I think it was the 16th of June 2016. Do you remember that day when the DAO was hacked and money was drained out of the DAO very quickly?
I remember it clearly. I woke up and just saw that my phone was exploding with Skype messages. People were talking, hey, we need to stop the network, we need to, like, what's happening? Like, have you contact exchanges, right? I was like, whoa, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And then that's how I told my wife, like, we were still in bed, and say, hey, like, remember that pile of unhackable money that I just told you the other day? Like, it was hacked, right? I was just the other day in São Paulo giving a talk about the unhackable pile of money, and then it was hacked.
Oh.
And how they did it, it was on the split function. For a funny reason, there was never a way for you to withdraw your money from the DAO, right? There was no simple way to get money out.
Yeah, but there was a way, right?
There was a way. The only way for you to get money out was to split the DAO, which is basically say, I disagree with the direction the DAO is going.
Yeah.
I'm going to create my own DAO, my own smaller DAO, and then like I will be running that show, right?
Okay.
And
then you could get the money also transferred back into Ether, or
and then I think you
Ether?
had to vote a proposal for yourself in order to get the money out, right?
Wow.
It was very complicated.
The attacker had used this split function to split the DAO into a smaller DAO that only he was controlling. Nobody suspects anything because that is the standard procedure if you want to get Ether out of the DAO. However, the hacker knew that there was a crucial bug in the code that would allow him or her to take out their money over and over again. Fixing this would have been as easy as switching the two lines of code so that the balance is updated before the actual payout. But without this fix, it was like an ATM that doesn't change your balance until it has given you the money. Can I withdraw $100? Wait, but before that, can I withdraw $100? Over and over again.
Basically, the idea is you have tokens that represent your Ether, right? So you go to the DAO, you tell them, like, here are my tokens, I want my Ether back. The DAO gives you your Ether, and the DAO burns your tokens. Does that feel right for you, right?
Yeah.
But there's a small detail in which first I'm getting the money, then you're burning the tokens, right? So that is the main difference. And just that little swap in those two lines, that's where the problem was. He can just restart the same thing again. Hey, I have tokens, give me the money, I'm gonna give you the tokens. Hey, thank you for the money. Before you burn the tokens, and then you can do that again and again and again and again until you run out of space on the blockchain. And that's what the hacker did, right? Instead of taking like the amount of tokens they had, he could take 10 times, 100 times the amount of tokens they had.
Yeah.
And that's how the hack worked.
Would you say it's almost like when you have an argument with somebody and then you say something, the other person knows you mean it that way, but then the person twists a word in a way that you didn't intend to say it, but it could also be understood that way.
Yeah, it could. That's a good point, because language isn't perfect. And code is also language. And sometimes you can like flip two lines and the code seems like it's going to do exactly the same thing. But unless you understand not only the code, but the machine it's running on, the ecosystem is running on, and the whole tech stack, then there's a chance that like what you meant was not what you said, right? And I think that is a good metaphor.
It is important to stress that the attacker never broke Ethereum's code. They just exploited a loophole in the DAO smart contract. And when the Ethereum community noticed what was going on, they could only watch at the sideline as the attacker was starting to rob the DAO at a rate of $8 million an hour.
And I think the guy stole like 30% of it. And then he just stopped. Why the hack stopped, I don't know. That is a very good question. I have no idea. But it was clear that he could start anytime. And more important than that, anyone could see what he did and replicate the attack, right?
Yeah.
And when I woke up, my first reaction was, the DAO is going to zero. I need to like get my money out the fastest way I could.
Yeah.
So I opened my wallet and then I typed like the codes to take the money out. I pressed the button and then there was a bug. And I think that's funny because I realized, oh fuck, there's a bug in this wallet. It doesn't work. And then I think, yeah, like who built this wallet? I built this wallet. I am the person building this wallet. And then like that realization was, I am this person building this ecosystem. I shouldn't be here thinking on how do I take my money out. I should be here thinking on how do I use the money that I have on the DAO to help, because I am in a unique position that I know people. I am in the foundation. I have friends, and I have DAO tokens that maybe they can use. And then I contacted Griff Green, and Griff is just like a wonderful human being, and I think his job title should be forever wonderful human being, because he does human stuff, right? He knows people, he has friends, he talks to people, and he could probably stop a war if you could just get Griff to talk to both sides.
Okay.
And then I contacted him and say, hey, like, I saw that people are talking about the options and what we can do. And I think the most interesting is, like, there's a hole in this bank, and the hole is right there. Like, we should probably just go walk in the same hole that the guy drew and take the rest of the money out. Not for us, but for everyone else, right? Yeah. And I contacted him and say, hey, like, is there anyone doing that already? And he basically say, yeah, I'm going to put you in touch with a couple of people.
The Robin Hood group.
It was just literally a Skype group that I renamed because it felt like funny. We were like robbing the rich DAO to give back to the people.
Yeah. And in the meantime, the Slockit guys from Germany found a way to replicate the attack. Armed with this knowledge, the Robin Hood group was theoretically ready to start rescuing the remaining 70% of the money. But first, some open questions needed to be answered.
And then it became like a philosophical question, like, what happens if you do it, right? Is it right for us to do it? Is it illegal for us to do it? Should we do it officially?
And you were basically employed by the Ethereum Foundation.
I was a contractor of the Ethereum Foundation. And if people don't know who is doing that, then what we are doing is no different from the black hacker. So we need to be public about it, right? So we decided that, look, it needs to be just us, not our companies. I can do the communications, like you guys do the hacking. I can press the button if it's needed.
And pressing the button is important because somebody needs to be the responsible person for it. And you took this responsibility on you.
Yeah, but I mean, in the end, a lot of people were pressing a lot of buttons.
Yeah, there's not just one attack because you had to do it over and over again, etc., right?
The second thing we realized is we need a lot of DAO tokens. Why? Because as I explained, it has a multiplier effect, right? You cannot take everything. You can only take like 10 times the amount you put in. So we needed a lot of DAO tokens, and then we started collecting.
The Robin Hood group was preparing themselves to start the rescue mission. In order to get the money out of the DAO, they needed to join existing splitting proposals. Imagine the movie Alien. The DAO is a spaceship that is slowly falling apart. Our heroes need to flee on the few remaining escape pods. And just about as Alex and his friends wanted to jump on their first escape pod, Alex's internet connection broke down. So he couldn't push the button. Then the weekend came and some members of the Robin Hood group had family appointments and they couldn't make time to continue. Finally, 4 days after the initial attack on a Tuesday, their hand was forced as the DAO was suddenly being attacked again.
It's almost as if everyone was paying attention to see who was the first one, because first attack came, then a second attack, and then a third, then a fourth attack. Okay. They all started coming, and then that's, hey, we need to push this button now.
Yeah.
And we did that, right? I had something like $10,000 maybe in DAO tokens, and we started doing that, and we realized, whoa, it's working. We just got $50,000 out of there. But someone made the calculation. Look, there's like $200 million there. If we do it 50,000 every time, it's gonna take forever, right? More important than the speed, you need to take it faster than the other guy is taking, right? So you need to be 100 times faster than he is. We started calling our friends, people who were also involved, and say, hey, we need some money. Can you donate money? I called Ryan Zur at that moment, and he was like, am I getting those back? And I say, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm going to try to get you those back, but maybe they're going to be burned. But he was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And it was like, this guy I met a couple of times in my life, and then suddenly he was like handing me something like $50,000. And then some other people came, and at some point we had like millions of dollars in DAO tokens. And that's only then that we started like winning over the other guys, right?
Controlling so many DAO tokens gave the Robinhood group the crucial edge over the other hackers in the race to drain the DAO. At the end, they managed to get around 70% of the ether under their control. Or at least that was what they thought. Let's revisit the alien analogy.
The spaceship was on fire, everyone escaped. This is the moment of the movie where we all sit down and relax, whoa, we did it. And then we look around and say, okay, who else is here with us, right? Yeah. And then we started like realizing, oh, there are like 8 people here, right? This guy is okay, I know him. This guy I don't know, but I know him. This guy I don't know, right? This is a weird guy. And then we realized, we come back to this guy and we realized, actually, this isn't a person. This guy here who's sitting with us is also another robot, right? And that's important because the only way that you can attack or escape hatch is if you put also a little robot companion there. And then we realized that robot companion had like infiltrated himself in every single one of the escape hatches, in every one of the escape ships, right? So you can imagine like the Titanic has just gone down, you are on a lifeboat, and then you realize like the metaphor breaks down. Like the iceberg is with you on the lifeboat, right? Or the alien, or the killer.
You wanted to split, and the hacker is with you on board. The bad guy is with you on board, and what can he do, though?
Because that was so quirky and so weirdly coded, we had basically 30 days of nothing could be done, and then the game restarts. Like we are escaping again, we're escaping again, and it felt like a very bad situation because if you just go wrong one time, then the bad guy wins and then it's gonna be like loss, right?
This whole situation put the Ethereum community in a very tight spot. And the clock was ticking because the time-locked escape pod with the stolen funds would open in a couple of weeks. If they don't do anything, the hacker could walk away with 5% of the total ETH supply. The Ethereum community had now 41 days to decide how they could solve this situation. And suddenly, the forks were on the table.
The soft fork is censorship. It's basically asking miners to censor a few transactions saying, hey, this is the bad guy. If the bad guy tries to do a transaction, just let's censor him. And it felt like a good idea. We were ready to launch that. But then, again, the guys from Cornell, they realized, hey, actually, you've built a censorship-resistant machine, right? And that machine will resist censorship even from itself, even from you, even from everyone, right? Blockchains are made to be censorship-resistant. In Ethereum, your computing power is paid by the fee that you pay for your transaction, right? So I can make a very complicated transaction, but in the end, I have to pay for it, right? Because that's what happens. If you censor a transaction, it means that you had to execute the whole transaction, but you don't get paid for it as a computer. Because I can do a very complicated transaction that will take a long time to execute. And in the end, I do the one forbidden thing, right? In order for you to figure out that I do the one forbidden thing, you have to run my whole transaction. And if you run the whole transaction, and in the end, like you realize, oh, I can't do the transaction, you're not going to get paid for it. So what I could do as a bad guy is I can publish 100,000, 1 million of those transactions. I can flood the network with random transactions that, like, if you try to censor,
it will overload the system.
We'll overload the system. We'll overload only the nodes that are doing the censoring. And that's the beautiful part. Everyone who's trying to censor will be overloaded. And therefore, the only survival nodes will be the ones that are not trying to censor anything.
Ah, wow, that's really smart. Okay.
And that is why blockchains are censorship resistant. And this is beautiful because this is the creator going against the machine that he created, right? This is Vitalik, this is the Ethereum Foundation trying to make Ethereum, the network, to do something that it was built not to do. That was the machine going against the creator, saying, I will not. I will not censor. This is a censorship resistant place. And then we realize, that's not going to work either, right?
Okay.
White hacking is not going to work. Like censoring, soft forking is not going to work. We only have two options left.
One option would be to just let the hacker get away with it. Immutability and censorship resistance are core values, deeply ingrained in the crypto community. And that's why the second option was so controversial. A hard fork was on the table. If enough of the Ethereum miners cooperated and together decided to update their software with a version that would basically undo the hack. If the Ethereum community could not win by playing by the flawed rules coded in the smart contract in the DAO, could they win if they decided to play a different game altogether?
We realized that we cannot play by the rule. Like, it's almost like you're going down one level of the rules, right? And then the next thing is, can we just shut down that system? Can we just like turn off those machines? That's a crazy thought, right? What do you mean, like just turn it off? Right? Yeah, let's just go one step deeper and just erase that software and put another software on it, right? We run those machines, right? The whole network, money, like everything is just a figment of our imagination, right? All those things, they are working just because we decided this collective hallucination that Ether is something that is real and the dollar is something that is real and you can trade one for the other. Maybe we can just create another hallucination. It's almost like a collective wishful thinking saying, you know what? Let's just shut down those machines, put another type of machine on. Some people that don't understand the system called it going back, rewriting history, or reverting transactions, things like that. First, it's not technically true because no transactions were rolled back. What we did is we just decided from this point on,
a new reality.
There's a new reality, right? In this new reality, everything is the same, but all the money on the DAO just moves to another contract, right? It's basically launching a new network. You can do that as long as everyone agrees. We had basically 30 days or 60 days to decide, and for the next 30 days, that's all we debated. Like, is this fair? Does it open a precedent? Are we risking everything we stood for? Or in the other hand, like, are we risking everything if you don't do that, right? And then that's how, like, we decide, you know what, let's will a new reality together because we can do it.
But there were also other voices, right? Like, can we quickly say what they are thinking? I know they say code is law. Like, the guy has not done anything wrong. He has used the DAO as it was written and he has found a loophole, but it's not wrong. And people who have like this Bitcoinish mindset would say, that's exactly against the ethos of a blockchain. You should not do that.
I was in that camp in the beginning. I believed that like the hard fork was a bad idea, and I was really against it. But I sort of like switched sides later, and then realized, I mean, maybe this is the way that the community wants to. And there's an interesting thing. If you think code is law, right? Which part of the layer of the code are you accepting that is law? Because we did something that the code allowed us to do. Not the code inside the DAO, but the code inside the network that we've built, the code inside every network miner, right? That's also code, right? Why is this code in this layer sacred, but the code in the layer underneath it not sacred?
Vitalik Buterin, the creator of Ethereum, was also supporting a hard fork. In an interview, he later said that some Bitcoin users see the hard fork as in some ways violating their most fundamental values. I personally think these fundamental values pushed to such extremes are silly. And most of the Ethereum community saw it the same way. A controversial community vote showed that 87% supported the fork. So on the 20th of July, Ethereum nodes all over the world updated their software and accepted this new reality. All the ether inside the DAO were moved to a refund contract and everyone got their ether back. But that's not the end of the story, because not everyone in the Ethereum community was simply going to accept this new reality. A vocal minority of miners decided to continue to mine on the unaltered Ethereum network, splitting the network in two, and that's how Ethereum Classic was born.
So what's happened, for the listeners who don't know, is that some people simply decided not to go with that reality. They decided to split away. And I think that's the fact that they could open a precedent that probably allowed Bitcoin Cash to exist, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, and all the other Bitcoin forks, right? It's almost like a Pandora box was open because people realized, oh, you can just fork stuff as long as you have a community. If you have a community, you can just fork it. It's almost as if we upgraded the whole like blockchain space with this new idea that you can fork stuff, you can create split realities. And before the Ethereum Classic split, a lot of people believed that that was sort of the dogma, that if a chain split in two, in a very short time, one of those branches would die out, right? That was the dogma then, right? I remember like reading blockchain blogs about saying, what would happen if there was a hard fork in Bitcoin? Everyone was saying, look, what's going to happen is that one of those branches will be making money, the other won't, and people will just stop mining on that chain, right? And then and at some point, people will decide which chain will win. And for a while, a lot of people thought, one of those chains will win. And then at some point realized, no, they didn't.
They coexist somehow.
They can coexist.
Interesting.
And it does help me see the world in a different light, realizing that coins are just community, really. Tokens are just community. Value is just community. This whole thing is just a collective hallucination that we all decide to go. And in the end, if we all decided to go in a different direction, and if everyone decided to, you know what, this guy is bad, I just want to go in a different direction, the world could be different, could be something else. And I think that's a really beautiful message that I got from this whole story.
Thank you very much, Alex, for your time and receiving me in your home. It was a pleasure. You can follow Alex on Twitter at AVSA, where he is tweeting about the future of Ethereum. Alex is currently working on Balancer, a DeFi protocol. The music in this episode is from Quincas Moreira, Young Logos, and Diala. The intro and outro sound is from Verified Picasso. You can find links and show notes, as well as a very good YouTube video that explains the DAO hack in more detail on the website. Simply type defier.money in your browser. And while you are there, make sure to click subscribe. If you are a long-term listener, you have noticed that the name and logo has changed. Defier is the new name of the show. I rebranded from Unforkable simply because I didn't like the name anymore. Let me know if you like the new name and design. The easiest way to get in touch with me is on Twitter. The handle is @DefierMoney. If you're looking for ways to support the show, please rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. Thank you very much, and until next time.